The Long Way Up is, I suppose, the third part of our motorcycle adventures, Charlie Boorman and I.
Two mates bumbling through South and Central America, never really quite knowing where they are or how to speak the language or names of towns. I suppose that's it in a nutshell, really. No,
it's an educational piece.
An educational piece, yeah.
Welcome to the Harley-Davidson podcast, Long Way Up Edition, a 6-part series where we dive into the epic 13,000-mile trip taken by Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman that took them from Ushuaia, South America, up to Los Angeles, and all on electric Harley-Davidson live wires. In the final episode of this series, the Long Way Up and Harley-Davidson teams discuss reaching the journey's end, the lasting impact of the ride, and the future of EV. Here's Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman.
As we started off with electric and trying to figure it all out and figure out the challenge, what we experienced and found out was really fascinating, and that it could be done.
When you're doing a trip like this, the sort of day in, day out charging of the bike, you get used to that. You know, it's different. Like we often talked about it being a bit like when petrol cars first came in, you know, in the early 1900s, when you took your petrol driven car out. You know, probably someone had dropped off some petrol on their horse for you before you left. So you knew where it was, and, you know, there was no infrastructure for petrol stations and that kind of thing. But still, here we are 100 years later, and so I'm sure that will be the same for electric. I'm just positive. I'm sure there will be other kinds of power too. But I think in the future, charging will become much quicker. Mileages will become longer on a charge. That's just technology. That's just the advance of technology. That's bound to happen.
Look at what Ewan and Charlie and the team just achieved. I mean, you would never have thought that they were going to be able to pull that off because of some of the places that they went through in terms of technological infrastructure. And they did it. My name's Brad Richards, and I'm the Vice President of Styling and Design at Harley-Davidson. Looking through the lens of this story and what they achieved, to me, that breaks down a massive psychological barrier. You know, how can I be concerned with, you know, am I going to find a charging port, you know, here in downtown Milwaukee if these guys rode from the tip of Argentina all the way to LA on an electric bike? I mean, that's a paradigm changer. So I think that this is going to wake a lot of folks up in terms of some of the apprehension about EV and certainly the apprehension about charging infrastructure and so on. And we know that for a certain group of customers, you know, EV makes a lot of sense out there in the world, in the four-wheeled world as well. And so that infrastructure will continue to grow.
What this trip did was really show that a lot of the challenges that everyone has been putting up and saying, this is why it'll never work, we were able to knock down a lot of those.
I'm Rachel Wildy. I am an engineering manager over EV special projects.
This series, and just to Ewan and Charlie's rationale behind why they wanted to do it, was to continue to bring this to the forefront. And I truly see more and more automakers, more motorcycles continuing to announce their electric platforms, whether it be pickup truck, delivery vehicle, motorcycle, moped, any and all of them. There's still challenges, the battery size and the ability to get enough range out of them, but it's the future. And as far as I see, it's super bright. There isn't anything that we can't do. It's just a matter of identifying the challenges and really finding those solutions moving forward.
You know, we had you guys at Harley-Davidson that came in so positively and so enthusiastically about the whole thing. And then when we started talking to Rivian about having these backup trucks to come along and being electric as well, and then the suggestion that we could leave a whole avenue of charging so that whoever wants to give it a go, you know, has a real chance at it. You know, that was one of the things which was such a bonus for this trip. It's amazing.
You know, Rivian, we're a super cool partner in this thing too. You know, equally cool, which is saying something because Harley was as cool as could be. And we did have chargers installed. My name is David Alexanian. I am one of the directors and producers of Long Way Up. Rivian installed a charging network for us. You know, this fellow RJ, who's the founder of Rivian, is literally one of the coolest, calmest cats you've ever met. He just said, we will install a charging network. It'll be amazing. It'll be a legacy for guys who want to ride their electric motorcycle, people want to ride their electric truck or car. So therefore, the logistics of that was a thing, but we felt like it was going to be a cool thing to leave for future travelers. So we went for it, and they stepped up and made it happen. And that was, imagine that. This wasn't like one of these things that we had 18 months or 2 years to plan for. They had 150 installations to do in 13 countries. Try to get the plumber to come and fix your kitchen sink and see if you can do that in a week. How'd you like to install 150 chargers in 13 different countries?
We had this one company, NL, who teamed up with Rivian and Harley to install charging points along our route. My name is Claudio von Planta. I'm a director of photography, which, once in a while, it was actually really, really good for us. We could plug in overnight or over lunchtime. Even if it didn't fill up necessarily, if you plug in over lunch, usually you don't fill up the whole battery, but you fill up 10%, 20%, and then exactly you get the extra mileage to get to your next destination. And the electric bikes, they tell you exactly what's your range all the time. They exactly, can I reach my next destinations or not?
I think what will happen is charging stations themselves will become places where you go for coffee or a bookshop or a clothing store or something, where you just rock up on your bike, plug it in, and there'll be something to do there, So for the 20 minutes or whatever it's going to take to charge your bike. In America, when we were plugging the live wires into the Phase 3 chargers, we would charge them from, 10% or wherever we were, really low to 100% in an hour, under an hour and a half. It's so quick, really.
We finally crossed into America, and we've been charging in people's houses and been doing about 150 miles a day or so. And then the first day into America, we left a bit late, and we said, right, we're going to head for this charger, which is about 70 miles away or something like that. And we went over to it and plugged in, and we just realized how fast that electricity was going into the bike. And I promise you, we went completely delirious. It was a little bit like when someone sees a moving escalator for the first time. You sit there going, the stairs move? And it was like that when we watched our bikes being charged, but look, it's already 8%, and we've only been here a couple of minutes. We were completely beside ourselves.
Doing an American trip on a live wire is not really that big of a deal. You could easily do it. And also you've got apps and stuff that show you where the next charging station is, and it become kind of mindless, thoughtless to be able to do it. You just press, you've got 50% left on your bike, and you just bring up on your phone, where's the next charging station? And if it's like 40 miles away, you just go to, and there you are. That's it. And it's pretty easy to do. When you're in the middle of nowhere, it's a different story.
Cool thing about EV charging is you're not constrained like a gas station to it being a gas station. So you could have chargers at a convenience store. You can have chargers in a recreational area. I'm Pasquale Romano, CEO of ChargePoint. It's not challenging from an electrical perspective to be able to put in charging to support riders and to be able to give them a charge in a relatively short period of time, especially in rural places where riders may want to go on a long trip. The beauty of electricity is it's everywhere. Some of the rural areas that you might want to go to have fun on a bike, if you look at a map at night from space, there's lights everywhere, right? So there's electricity everywhere. And so you can charge while you're doing something else. You could park for 20 minutes, go in a store to grab some, refreshments or what have you, and you're topping off that bike. So you're not actually making an explicit trip anymore to go charge it, especially if you're parked somewhere, overnight. Let's say you were parked at a campground, or you were visiting a friend and you were, parked in their driveway. It's relatively easy, if you can get any electrical access at all, because the Livewire comes with a level 1 charger, to just use that available power to top the bike off. And if you're constantly topping it off, you're never really worrying about going to get a charge unless you're trying to drive a long trip beyond your battery range in one go. And then, much like you see in the series, it's pretty easy to find those chargers as well with a mobile app.
Some of the places that they have chargers now, I was down doing this track day yesterday in Brands Hatch, and I was looking for a charger, and there was a beautiful hotel, just literally you could almost walk there from the track, and it had a charger, and you went in, plugged in. I had a fabulous lunch, and then 35-40 minutes later, I was back and having a great time. So I think it is almost there. It just needs that polishing off, and it's ready.
I think one of the questions most Harley riders that are driving traditional gasoline bikes would say is, well, when I'm out, I don't see charging stations, and that's because your mobile phone sees them. You don't have to, right? I mean, it's conspicuous in the virtual world. It's not conspicuous in the physical world because it doesn't have to be. You don't have to mar the landscape with a big canopy in an industrial-looking gas station. These things could be on the, inconspicuous in the parking lot near the bushes of your favorite restaurant that you stop at somewhere, and you won't even know it's there unless you look on your mobile app, and then you'll know it's there, and then you'll never not see it the next time you go there. So I think the moral of the story is you can charge it pretty much anywhere you're stopped, and you're going to be constantly topping it off, and it's super easy to plan your trip with a mobile app, and not to mention the fact it's super cheap. Motorcycles in general are very economical, whether they be gas or not, but this is even more economical than riding on gasoline.
I think about it more in terms of like, what does the EV provide our customers in terms of that experience? And it's a different experience than riding an internal combustion motorcycle. I love internal combustion, but I can certainly absolutely appreciate what EV brings you as well. It's a different riding experience, but it still delivers all of the great things that riding a motorcycle delivers to you. It's the ability to kind of get out in nature and disconnect from the world, if you will, and think about things on a different level, and experience sort of the autonomy of riding a motorcycle in this day and age when we're kind of all cooped up with what's going on with the pandemic. I mean, there hasn't been a better moment to experience motorcycling. And EV and ICE, they're just two different ways to experience it. It's just, to me, it's not one or the other. It's to me, it's both.
Electric opens it up to a lot of different people who, maybe didn't grow up using a clutch. And so you take that piece out of it, and riding a motorcycle becomes a lot less intimidating. It is literally roll on, and you've got the power, roll off a little bit, you're gonna slow down. It's super simple like that. And so I think that takes another one of those barriers away. And specifically for the electric vehicle market, some of these people, they love the challenge, right? And to go out and just experience it out there with very little support, everything else, I think that's pretty cool.
EV is happening. It is absolutely the future. We are proving that it's very, very capable. And in our challenge, when we designed Livewire, we said that what we want to do is design the best motorcycle in the world that happens to be an EV. I'm Jim Federico, VP of Engineering at Harley-Davidson. Once you start having the demand for the technology will advance faster. It's happening. I knew it when I started in the EV world over 10 years ago. This is, and it's moving, and every 2 years it's going to move faster. Energy density is going to get better. Costs are going to come down. The ease of doing it. You don't have to worry about emission standards. It's on its way. Jump on and have fun. It's going to be a cool ride.
It gives the entire engineering and product development community even more confidence that we're on the right path with our electric vehicles and what the potential could be. My name's Glenn Koval. I am General Manager of Engineering. When you get on these bikes and you ride them, and I think you'll see it resonating in the series, the acceleration, the smooth roll-on throttle, just how quick these bikes are, is so addictingly fun and next level of riding that we feel there's definitely space for EV motorcycles in the future.
We are always looking at white space at the company. I think we've proven that with Livewire, right? I think that's if anything, Livewire has proven that the company is not afraid to take some risks and go into some spaces and apply the brand to technologies and ideas and experiences that may not, come to the forefront of people's minds when they think of Harley-Davidson. But if you go back over the years, the company, especially if you look at the birth of the company and through the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, the company was an extremely innovative company. The things that we took on and what we tried to do, I tell people that Harley-Davidson was Apple in 1903. If you think about the social structure that most people had, they didn't go any more than 14 miles from home their entire lives, and all of a sudden you had this product that allowed you to go 3 or 4 cities from your city, and just instantly magnified your social infrastructure. That's how I think of Harley-Davidson in terms of embracing new technology and being able to do something like this.
This whole software-defined user experience is what we're becoming accustomed to. We're used to it on our phones. Everyone's now used to it on their phone. Their phone just keeps evolving with the applications, keep updating themselves and get better. And I think the LiveWire is in a similar category, like other electric automobiles, where they are the first platforms to really get that attention from the manufacturer. So I'm super excited about where Harley can take this over time. And it's a mobile app enabled bike, which is very cool to have the mobile app enablement there. And through our mobile app, Harley riders can again manage the charging experience. And so I think it's going to evolve. So when you buy something like this, the experience has the ability to keep getting better even after you bought it. And I think that's what's really amazing about electrified transportation in general.
In a lot of ways, EV powertrain or an EV motorcycle is a really great way to adventure tour, because you don't have a clutch, you don't have a transmission, so you don't have to worry about any of that. And also the torque is just incredible out of an EV product. I mean, it's instantaneous. So that also it helps. You don't have to spool up the motor to get over an obstacle. It's just the torque is always right there for you. So we realized that, there were some just key attributes about EV that come along for the ride that were just so well suited for off-road riding.
What the show has done and the show has proven is already kind of manifesting itself with our customers and likely with our competitors. I'm John Beckefee, GM of Brand Marketing at Harley-Davidson. We've had a customer of ours, Diego, ride his LiveWire from the California-Mexico border to the U.S.-Canada border. We've had another customer ride from Atlanta to California. This summer we saw a younger customer ride from Florida to Sturgis, and these were all done on LiveWires, right? So if you think about the show and its short time that it's been, publicly known, we've already had people engage with the brand and use their LiveWires in a similar fashion to continue to demonstrate the ability that EV currently has and its value prop, right? And so it's not to say that those gentlemen wouldn't have been inspired to do that without Long Way Up, but Long Way Up has certainly shown the validity of EV as a platform, and that with just a little bit of different thinking, you can still do the exact same kind of things that you would do on a more traditional motorcycle with a combustion powertrain.
I think the legacy of these trips is that I think we've inspired other people to do their own. Well, I'm Russ Malkin, producer, director. I went with my daughter, for instance, once to the summer solstice at Stonehenge, and I got a tap on the shoulder. This guy goes, "Did you do Long Way Round?" He was only 20, because I watched that. He said, "It changed my life. I bought a bike and I went off and did my own stuff." And it was like, oh wow. I mean, we get that quite a lot. People need to get out into nature. They need to be away, not necessarily from your phones and all that, but you need to get out and do an adventure, because you're just away from the stresses and strains of real life. And I've never met anyone that's done an adventure that's regretted it. They'll bore you with all the stories when it went horribly wrong and they got stuck up to their waist in mud or got rained on, but they'll be doing it with a smile on their face. So I think the legacy is the inspiration to help other people get out and do their own adventures.
We met over the years, met a lot of people who have done lots of these trips in the past, or done across America or across their state, or did a 4-day adventure somewhere or whatever it was. And I suppose it doesn't really matter if it's a day or 2 days or 10 days or whatever it is, because an adventure is an adventure. And just by stepping out your door.
And of course, we couldn't have predicted this pandemic, but I think people have escapist fantasies when you can get out and do your own thing anyway. The fact that we've all been locked down in one way or another for the past 6 months, I hope this is going to be medicine for some people,
We did this just before the pandemic hit the world, and we arrived just in December, and by February, March, the world was a very different place, and who knows when we'll be able to travel as freely as we did again. So, but when we do, it's a nice idea that we encourage people to go out and see the world, because I think that's fantastic.
Each step throughout the process, whether it was, just the initial ride from Ewan and Charlie, or once I got back from the Arizona Proving Ground, or even once we made it past our first day of true riding and filming and everything, each one of them was like a giant milestone. And we I hate to say it, but as engineers, we're very conservative. And I don't want to say we weren't confident with it. We wouldn't have shipped it if we weren't confident. But at the back of our minds, we were still saying, oh, we never tested it this way. We never did this. We never did that. And so each point along the route was an exciting moment in itself.
There was anxiety, like, will the bikes start? Will they run? Will we be able to charge them? And I think it's all really beautifully captured in the first couple of episodes. And so there were those calls and exchanges. And then after that, it was just like, it got smoother and smoother till where there were even days during the week where I actually didn't even think about Long Way Up, but then would suddenly feel super guilty knowing that Charlie and Ewan were, somewhere in Bolivia crossing a desert or a mountain range. And, our team was a few hours behind them.
When we reached the halfway point and we had planned to do some routine maintenance at that point, I think a whole bunch of us kind of gave high fives. Holy crap, we've made it halfway there and we're still doing amazing.
The last portion of the trip was largely centered around Los Angeles, and the plan was that the team, Ewan and Charlie on the live wires, Russ and David driving the Rivians, and the camera team would meet at a local Harley-Davidson dealer and then escort them into Los Angeles downtown.
At the final party in LA, we got to fly the whole team out there and go hang with those guys, ride the last few miles, and then just celebrate with that team of just how proud everybody was. Really, really cool moments.
I was actually at our Fullerton dealership when those bikes came rolling in. I was ecstatic to see them. They made it. It was an amazing feeling, showing everything that we had accomplished, right? These countries that they had been through, these bikes had flown, they'd gone on boats, they'd been tied down all different types of ways. Things that we wouldn't typically think about doing with a Harley. It was absolutely amazing and was a true adventure.
We had a few hundred Harley-Davidson riders who turned out that Saturday to, celebrate and welcome them home. And then we brought about 24 live wires, and we all jumped on the 5 and rode them into Los Angeles. And it was an incredible experience. Ewan and Charlie are leading this pack of 15 live wires and a few hundred riders, over the highways and then off the highway and into downtown Los Angeles. It was a rad way to welcome them home and share in just a tiny bit of that trip.
Cruising into LA and thinking, with all our friends and family who came to join us, and they were riding in with us. And I remember looking over at Ewan and thinking, wow, we did this. And we, started that first day in Ushuaia where it was freezing cold and with those 13,000 miles ahead of us thinking, how are we going to do this? And so it was pretty cool.
When we rolled into LA, of course, look at the pictures. We're happy, man. We were there, we were seeing our families, we could get home for Christmas, we'd done a great trip, we brought the bikes home, we brought the cars home, we brought the people home, no one had got hurt, we brought it in on our budget, and we were in a great relationship with you guys and Rivian and Bell staff and UNICEF. So to me, it was a job well done.
I think for me as a filmmaker, it was fun to do something that was going to surprise people. I don't think people would have immediately thought we'd be riding on Harley-Davidson's A or, electric Harley's B. Harley-Davidson's this 100-plus-year-old company. And the bravery they exhibited to say, hey, you guys have some crazy idea, but we're crazy too. You're a very big company. You got serious responsibilities, but you treated this thing as if we met, the original founders of Harley-Davidson in their garage, And they loved it and were so kind to us all the way through. And you see it. These bikes were not anywhere close to being on a showroom floor, and you built a couple of them and modified them. And we're so pleased with how well it worked.
I think we had to get involved in Long Way Up because it was absolutely bonkers, and that's when it's like the best idea possible. But I also think that we had to take on the risk because our engineering team was so optimistic and did not perceive this to be a risk. They certainly perceived it to be a challenge, but Long Way Up in typical Long Way Up fashion, they had a few different ideas about what motorcycle they wanted to ride and, what manufacturer they wanted to work with. But ultimately, we made the best product and we provided the best range. And so Ewan and Charlie came to us. And so we were kind of beholden that we had to do it. And the engineering team was just so optimistic. I think that they always believed we would do this and we would do this without fail.
I remember saying to Jim Federico, at one point I pulled him aside and I said, thank you for being out of your mind, thank you. Because I don't know another engineer who would be building any product that would allow you to do a thing like this without proper testing, and I'm very grateful. I always will be.
We are the first OE, the original equipment, a motorcycle large company that have brought this forward, and I think shown the world that, holy cow, this bike can be damn awesome, and the experience and what EV can bring is it's unlimited.
Teamwork is that thing that comes to mind is when you set an aggressive but attainable goal, you get a team of cross-functional engineers that are all aligned, working for the same mission, same goal, and are all in with their passion and their experience. You can pretty much accomplish anything that you set your mind to. And so seeing that, doing that, I try to take those learnings and move it into my job daily.
I am so proud of the team that designed and put together these bikes, as well as the team that supported it along the route. It was an absolutely amazing adventure, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Taking something on so bold and such a first, certainly I would tend to believe that it would lend a certain credibility to what we're going to be doing in 2021 with Pan America. If any brand is going to be the first to do something in a space related to, our specialization, which is, two-wheel motorcycles, then it should be us.
The fact that the bikes lived through the adventure and through the journey and through all the unexpected twists, that is an incredibly rewarding thing for us, for the Harley-Davidson brand, because there's just so much right now that, that's sort of unexpected that's going on with our brand. And to do something like Livewire alone, to me, is I'm very proud of that we took that on and did something and innovated like that, and that speaks to, I think, a lot of the DNA of the company, especially at the birth of the company, of how the confidence that the four founders had in pulling these things off and creating not just a motorcycle, but a lifestyle, right? And so then we have this electric product, today, and we have the challenge of this trip, the time that we had, which wasn't a whole lot of time to do this. The whole company had to come together to create this moment in time, if you will, with Charlie and Ewan, and the bikes came through, and the story's fantastic, and it speaks to everybody involved in the trip, and especially speaks to the Harley-Davidson brand in my mind, because we've always been about perseverance, we've always been about authenticity. We've always been about thinking about things differently and not taking the path that everybody chooses and that most people take. So there are all of these things that align with the brand that I think we should be incredibly proud of as employees of this company.
I think the challenge was there to to do it. And I think, you know, I think there were certainly times near the beginning of the trip that we really had to sort of scratch our heads and looked at the map and thinking, we haven't gone very far and we've got all this way to go. And, you know, and especially when the batteries, when it was very, very cold, the batteries performed differently. And you know, there were moments where we looked and thinking, this is going to be unachievable. And, you know, how are we going to do this, you know? And then we got into the rhythm, we got warmer, you know, we got more into it, we got more an understanding of how the whole thing works. And it became a real possibility then. And then, yeah, sure, to be one of the first handful of people to be able to do it was pretty cool, I suppose. And I think for Harley-Davidson, I think it's quite extraordinary where one way, I remember you and I were having that conversation when we saw the trip bikes for the first time, and we sat there thinking, well, you know, they built a beautiful electric adventure bike, and they kind of had sort of put a line in the sand and said, look, this is a big statement. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing next. And we believe in our product. You guys believe so much in your product. And not only that, you know, we were lucky enough to be able to sort of show people, you know, how amazing the bikes that you guys have built and what they can actually do is quite extraordinary. So we kind of sat on them and had a great adventure, but you know, you guys made it possible for us to be able to do it.
With the bikes, we were quite proud to be sort of, for 4 months we became Harley-Davidson test riders, you know, and every time Harley came down to, you know, every now and again there would be technicians come to service the bikes and to check the bikes, and they would plug them in and they would download all the data that had been stored from our last week's riding. And so that data would go back to Milwaukee, and all of that technical data was utilized to make the live wire that people can buy in the shop a better bike. And so we feel like we're part of it, you know, we've got a little bit of our DNA is in the live wire bike itself. And there's a couple of things with the onboard charging unit and things that were improved for customers because of what was learned from us doing the Long Way Up trip. And so that's a really nice feeling. It was a great job to have for a while. Harley-Davidson test rider. It was a beautiful bike to ride. It was a lovely experience.
You guys are going to come along with us next time.
Catch new episodes of Long Way Up exclusively on Apple TV+.